wanted to get together this morning, have another compliance communication here, a little update of what's gone on during the weekend, because things happen now over the weekends here in addition to the weeks and months. And here with Ray from Loan Risk Advisors. I said we have news every month. There's more news about the CFPB. And a lot of people asking about it, writing about it, talking about it. It's all over media, social media, and so on. So Ray wanted to get together this morning, and there's again a lot of dialogue going on, and asking about the CFPB. Is it going away? Is it going to be
there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about, but thanks for letting me be on board and be able to do this podcast with you, and let's see what we can figure out what's going on there in DC, if you will.
So, what are your thoughts about the latest news? As we're here this morning, we know about the changes and the revolving door of who's running what there. But the latest news is funding is going away, so everybody seems up in a tizzy about what's going to happen there. So, curious, what do you think's happening?
That's a good question. I will tell you that I kind of anticipated, I'd say the industry as a whole, right, anticipated what was going to happen. The Trump administration, even before inauguration, was very open about coming after the CFPB and doing something. So I kind of expected that they would do something. I expected they were going to do something quickly. I think they were going to do something to be provocative. I expected them to probably use funding as a method to kind of get control of the CFPB. CFPB basically is a product of Congress, not the administration. So they can't just erase it per se. So I kind of figured they would take these steps. What I didn't expect was how popular it is, how it really got into mainstream, as you said. The CFPB suddenly is fancy. It's Elon knows that it exists now, right? So it really has become quite the pop culture issue, and I didn't expect that. So we see a lot of that coming out, and that wasn't what I was expecting. Headlines on USA Today or whatever, right? It's just crazy. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Do you think this is as good as some people are suggesting and as bad as others are saying it might be?
In some ways, if you're asking me, is it good that they're going away? Well, there's a lot of people with pent-up frustration, and myself as well, that in that context, we say, finally, we can maybe get some clarity on how the laws work, because we don't have to shiver in our boots because of a regulator is going to come and make up the law because they just don't like what we're doing. So in that sense, I think that's good. Is it bad? Well, remember, I think these are consumer protection laws, and I think keep an eye on the fact that they do have a purpose. I think, looking at a balanced approach here, we do have reasons why we have to give disclosures to consumers, let them know what the loan costs. I think that's pretty fair. So we want to make sure that there are certain things in place that truly benefit the consumer and protect them, and things that, of course, is in our industry, we've been able to coexist for decades, and we have no problem probably continuing to coexist with those. We're not seeing it as a win. We can now violate RESPA. It's not the intent. I've never seen any of my clients or anywhere I worked before wring their hands and hope that they can actually do one under on a consumer. It's not how it works. So in a way, we just have to make sure that what does make sense of these laws and that does work between particular industries and particularly protects consumers still exists and still works as well. So is it good or bad? I think it's a little both. We'll see how it gets balanced in the future. But right now, what I'm seeing a lot of is it's good that they're gone. And here, it's bad that they're gone. It's like I'm looking in the middle of, let's figure out, can we just get along and figure out what this means and take the best that we can that's for consumers as well as lenders. And I think there's room for that.
So is it too soon to ask, or are things moving too quickly to ask, how do you think things are going to look in the next 4 years? We're going administration by administration, right? So
it's going to be a little bit difficult because things are way in the air, right? What I think net, what's going to happen is that CFPB gone or not, the question is their presence or non-presence, right? The laws and regulations don't go away. Those are act of Congress, so anything TILA, RESPA, ECOA, HMDA, all of those still exist, are still around. And the regulations are still around, and, the CFPB may or may take them away. I don't know how you do that, but at the end of the day, you still have to comply with the law. So what I think is going to happen is, if we're looking at the CFPB from what it sounds right now and the actions they're taking, I suspect that we're going to see a less present CFPB, certainly in the enforcement context, or anything done at the expense of good-natured lenders and banks and whatever out there. I expect maybe still some good consumer protection. Maybe that's what they want to do. I also think, however, like I said, the laws are not going to go away. So the enforcement and the interpretations, et cetera, might be embedded into another agency that already exists. Now, keep in mind, we've had the Federal Reserve Board and HUD that governed our industry for decades before the CFPB came along. It wasn't like we weren't regulated. Maybe it wasn't as focused, but as the CFPB. but we were regulated, and those and HUD and Federal Reserve Board and other agencies still exist. I see the action by the administration as a cost savings. Now, there's a lot of things they also want to defang and that kind of stuff, I suppose, but it's posed as a cost savings. We can argue that it's not trying to do away with the protections or the laws, but more about, do we need another agency to do it? Why don't we embed it into an agency that already exists? Do we need these many agencies? So I think we're still going to see that the laws exist, the regulations exist. And I also think, by the way, and this is consistent with Chopra, which he did, was basically do a game plan for the states to say, hey, keep the good fight that he wanted to keep going. And the states will start enforcing the federal laws, which many of them have the authority to do. So I think we're going to see still things that will exist by the state level. And the CFPB is probably going to exist in some fashion. Don't know what. It's just a guess. But again, the administration of the law and regulations that affect our industry are just going to be embedded somewhere else. The degree of which there's going to be enforcement, I do not know. I kind of suspect, but I just think there might be shifted who's going to cover it. If they're really looking at a cost savings, right? That's what I would predict.
Well, with all this, and let's wrap up with this question, and an important one. How would you advise your clients today, given all that's transpired so far, and the things that you've mentioned about what may or may not happen, and just all the things you just shared?
That's a great question. You know, a lot of times for the last decade and a half, whatever it is, anytime we talk about the CFPB, it was duck and cover. You know, no good deed goes unpunished often was the case when it came to the CFPB and its enforcement on how they interpret the laws. The first question you should ask with anything when it comes to regulation is, you know, what are you trying to accomplish? What risk are you hedging? How does it really protect the consumer? How does this affect the consumer experience for the consumers? And so I think that's something we've had before. So then when it came to, we have a really good idea, we want to do this with AI making it up, you know, AI and technology in mortgage banking, that's great. But it was still duck and cover because we don't know how the regulator, particularly CFPB, is going to respond. So to answer your question, duck and cover is not as much maybe now as we used to be. I will tell you the law still exists. I think regulators, no matter what they do with it, someone still has to administer these laws. I don't think they're going to go away. And again, they're still on books. So we still have to make sure we get loan estimates out in 3 days. We're still going to have to figure out closing disclosures must be accurate. We have to make sure that if we turn down a borrower, we have to get an adverse action out in time. And I think we need to continue with that guidance and work on those rails that we've always had. I don't think we step back and say, well, we don't have to worry now. So we don't have to get an LE out in 3 days. I don't think it's not going to be the case. Don't forget, we still have state regulators. Don't forget, some of these things have private right of action. So, you know, consumers themselves can take action against violations. So I think innovation is going to take an interesting track, and people are going to try more things. And even then, I think as stewards of the law and regulation, as we are in compliance, is to make sure that which they do still falls within the expectations of the laws and regulations. If it's going to be AI or e-signing or whatever it is, right? Anything that goes forward and people have a new idea and innovation, it's a great idea. But the structure's still there. And again, we still have to be stewards of that to make sure that they get it right. That's what I think. That's what I advise my clients anyways, it's not gone away, right? The rules are still there. But let's have a conversation. What are your ideas, and navigate it through and manage our risk like we've always done before.
So, well, the innovation point is really uplifting, actually, because I think this is your quote from some time ago. I can't wait to see what happens in compliance and regulation.
Well, yeah, I have said that. I will tell you, I've said that more since November than any time in my 30-something years within this business. Is like, let's see what happens next, because there is a lot of change, and still a lot of things haven't changed. We got to sift through which one's changing and which one's not.
Yeah. And it's become the mainstream, as we mentioned earlier in the conversation.
Look at that. Compliance is pop culture. That is awesome. Finally.
Well, there's going to be more soon, so we'll leave it there for today, but it won't be too long before there's going to be another set of news and some more things to chat about, and look forward to that. Indeed. Well, thanks again. Have a great day, and we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you.